Welcome everybody to the Pirate Skills meetup today on August 19th. This time we're going to talk about tracking everything with Google Tag Manager. We have had several Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, and so on tracking meetups with our nice turquoise color. And I always get the question at a certain level of technical sophistication, like, but what about Tag Manager? Can you teach us more about this? And I really want to create this one resource where I can point people to here. These are the basics for Google Tag Manager. And at the end, I will tell you learning resources that will take you from beginner to intermediate to advanced. So understand that this is today introduction into getting started with Google Tag Manager. So if you're already highly technical with it, ask the questions and then we can answer those technical questions in the Q&A section at the end. But be ready that we are going to introduce you to the whole topic. And I think the beginners and intermediates, they will really appreciate us starting here properly for everybody. Cool. So what do we have on track for today? We're first going to talk about how awesome it is to manage all of your pixels without coding. Then how it can affect your ad campaigns and how it can improve your performance. And then for the product people, we want to gain maximum visibility of our user behavior. And then, as mentioned before, I want to show you what the learning path for Google Tag Manager is, because 1 hour is going to give you a good introduction that you can implement right away. But it takes a little while. It's a Tag Manager takes some getting used to. Let me say it like that. And at the end, we have the Q&A session as always, and you can add your questions through slido.com when you enter the code R. So I'm Ben, in case you're new here. I'm the founder of Pirate Skills, and now I've been doing this for 4.5 years, just those meetups. And analytics has followed me, I think, the last 12 to 14 years. I studied a couple of semesters of computer science. I really loved the math part there. And then I studied psychology. And this is where I really went deep into user behavior tracking. And if you think about a growth marketer that is supposed to be like a T-shaped person that has broad knowledge, but a few very deep things, I would say analytics is by far the deepest skill and the one that I'm just most passionate about. I don't know, call me weird, but I just love talking about it. It is such a helpful tool. And I think that's just something interesting to know about me. So let's start tackling the first part, managing pixels without coding. Why is this so important? Let's go right into a concrete case study. Last time we talked about Monday Rocks, this time again. Monday Rocks is an app for successful team management. It's targeted towards B2B people, team leader, HR management, and they want to onboard people and of course into their software as a service solution, and they need a landing page that converts. So let's take a look at this landing page and what we would like to track in order to make a high performance B2B lead generation funnel. This works as well for B2C, so just keep watching. All right, here is the first part of the landing page. You can see the top fold, it's a bit zoomed out. So let's zoom in a little bit. And you can see that the main attraction on this first fold is the button, the orange button that says discover your team. And why would we want to click it? Because the truth is at least 50% of the people who are watching this are going to just leave the page without any interaction. We call those bounces. Yeah, and everything below a 50% bounce rate is already considered good. So just face that reality that every single interaction a person can do shows some form of commitment. Sounds a bit ridiculous to call a click a commitment, but on Facebook it's already a commitment to get people to watch a 10-second video. And the same is true here, to get people interested, to make them scroll down. That is a true challenge. So first of all, I want to track that people actually landed on this page. Yeah, this is a page view. And then I want to know that the person clicked on this button. So let's scroll down. Oh, there are 2 more buttons. They can schedule an appointment to get a consultation that helps them to implement the sales software, to implement the software as a service solution for team management. And of course, we not only want to track that click, but we want to track the whole journey after that. The scheduling, the emails, the reminders, the call, the actual appearance in the call, the result of that. And all of this can be really helpfully done with Google Tag Manager. And there's another call to action. They can go straight into the app. And this, again, is something that we want to track. It's a complete online experience. So we have the ability to take them from this landing page to that click and track their whole user behavior along. As long as they consent, of course. Yeah, we are in a GDPR world. We ask people if they want to be tracked or not. If they say yes, we get to do this. Otherwise, we don't. But it's good enough if at least like 20 to 50% of people say, yes, I want to be tracked. And this is an interesting page. Yeah, now you can see a price, 319 euros as a starting point. Everybody who took the time to actually view this area, pricing area, is interesting. So maybe I want to track everybody who has scrolled down far enough to have this element visible either on mobile or desktop. Because I think people who see a price and people who do not see a price, they can react quite differently. So I definitely want to know that. So, and then there's even more information on this landing page. You can again go to the scheduling appointment or to just book it online immediately. And of course, again, we're interested in the scrolls, in the clicks, and what happens afterwards. So now imagine you have to track those 10 events that we talked about for Google Analytics, for Google AdWords, for Facebook Pixel, for LinkedIn, for Twitter. Your developer is going to go nuts and they don't want to do it and you don't want to do it, even if you know how to do it. This would be implemented in about 50 custom tracking events if you really wanted to do it with code. Plus, if you change something on your website, you're going to be super inflexible. So we're going to look at a solution with Google Tag Manager on how we are going to be able to manage all of those pixels without code. I think this is a very, very exciting time to be in, that you just have to install a tool like Google Tag Manager once properly. And on WordPress website, even non-technical people can definitely do that. Or in simple web pages and services like Wix and Squarespace and whatnot. You don't need to be a developer to get in there. And after that, you can just work in Google Tag Manager, set all the pixels up. And I want to show you today on how to do this exactly. So what is Google Tag Manager and why am I so excited about it? Yeah, imagine you had to do the implementation of those 50 events and then somebody told you, I got this tools that just takes care of it through a user interface. And this is where Google Tag Manager comes to the rescue. So imagine it as a layer between your website and your pixels. On the left-hand side, you can see, oh yeah, there's your website. It could also be your mobile app. It could be your survey form. And then you have Google Tag Manager. All the user behavior is being sent to Google Tag Manager. And from there on, it's like a spider in the middle of the web. And it sends that information to Facebook, to Google, to LinkedIn, to Twitter, wherever you want it to be sent, as long as the user consented to it. And that makes your life incredibly easy. You can't imagine how complex a more thorough tracking setup can become over time. And the ability to not needing to change that in the code of the website that might break down because I made a mistake when I recommitted the website. It's just such a huge risk to not go with a tag management solution. There are other tag managers, but today we're going to talk about specifically about Google Tag Manager because it has become like the de facto standard tool. But last week, for example, I helped with the implementation of a Matomo Tag Manager, and that is a very data privacy centric tool. Matomo, if you're interested in that, it's an alternative to Google Analytics that can be hosted on your own servers, and therefore information does not get to be sent overseas, and which increases the probability that you are GDPR compliant with or without consent. So that's Google Tag Manager. And what can you do with it? I just listed my favorite things I like to do with it and my benefits that I get out of it. So as I mentioned before, I want to have all of my pixels in one place. To be honest, I have up to 10 pixels on my website. It's that stuff like Google Analytics, Google Optimize, yes, the Google Tag Manager itself. It's usually Google Ads conversion tags. In addition to that, it might be Google Ads retargeting tags. It is Facebook pixel. It is the LinkedIn pixel. It's the Twitter pixel. I'm testing stuff with Pinterest. I have tested with Quora. I have maybe a chat widget implemented to Google Tag Manager. So 10 is easily done. And having all those in one place and just having to set up the second point, the ability to create rule-based triggers that fire those pixels, only having to do it once and then being able to send it to 10 different people, different tools, that's just amazing magic for me. So creating those trigger-based rules is something we're going to talk about definitely in the upcoming minutes. So then we want to be able to fire page views, so people landed on the page, and events, what people did on the page through Tag Manager. And a special ability, you don't have to publish everything right away. You can go into a preview mode and check if everything is working. And only if stuff is working, and if you don't see any weirdness on your website, then you publish it to everybody. And you can access user management. Imagine you have couple of agencies working with you, or team members, people entering, going, leaving, and you can have a centralized access to what can be changed. Yeah, and you can access this through Google Tag Manager, and I really like that. And yes, I also have the ability to track specifically based on the user consent. So if somebody wants to be tracked on Google but not on Facebook, it's absolutely possible to configure that with Google Tag Manager, and it's much harder when it's hard-coded. So I think those are like the main benefits. If you have additional benefits, of which there are many, please put them in the comments. I would love to hear them. So this is how Tag Manager looks like when you have implemented that. This is straight a screenshot from Monday Rocks, where you can see here we got a conversion linker, we got Google Analytics, events primarily, like a call to action being clicked, a basic program being booked, a header call to action being clicked. We're going to look at this header call to action a lot. So we're going to use the header call to action, the first orange button that I talked about, as an example throughout this whole meetup. Yeah, so you can see, you can scroll down a lot. There are lots of events tracked there in different tools, not just in Google Analytics, but this is what you get: a list of the tags and a list of the triggers and whether or not they're active or not. Cool. So if you like that already, then please head over to the YouTube channel and leave a sub. If you're already on YouTube, thank you very much for subbing and liking this. Much appreciated. Thank you. So now we're gonna switch to the more concrete part. So most of you are here because of growth marketing. You want to grow, and lots of you are interested in advertising and how you can improve your ad campaigns. And tracking with Google Tag Manager has very straightforward advantages to improve your ad performance. So this is what we're going to talk about in the next video. So if you have any questions so far, hop to slido.com and enter the code R, and let's look over there and see how many questions we have already received. So we have now 5 questions, and what I'm missing are still upvotes. So guys, go to slido.com and enter the code R or scan the QR code, and this is where you can land here. Yeah, and then you can upvote those questions up here, and you can ask your own questions. So please do that. That would be awesome. That makes the last part, the Q&A, much more relevant to you. Cool. Oh yeah, the mic is in the picture. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you very much. Ina, you're the boss. All right, on to the next part. So improving your ad performance is at the heart of us growth marketers, and anything that can help us get there is so important for us. And Google Tag Manager is a great way that I can show you to improve your ad campaigns that is a bit more from the analytical and technical side of things. So how can it do it? How can you improve? So imagine you are you're having a Google Ads campaign, and you want to generate leads for a software as a service, like our case study for today, Monday Rocks. And you're sending traffic. People are looking for team development software, and people are interested, and they start going to a website, but nobody's scheduling an appointment and nobody's booking straight online. That is, to be honest, the most frequent experience that you have when you start with campaigns. To expect immediate results and profitable campaigns, if it were that easy, everybody would do it, and it would be super expensive. So you have to work for it. So, but what do you do when you don't get any results? You want to measure all the steps in between. And as I mentioned before in the first video of this series, is you want to track every piece of commitment that a user makes, the scrolls, the clicks, and in this case, we want to track that button click on this landing page on Monday Rocks that says discover your team, because anybody who scrolls down or clicks that button is more committed than all the rest that just bounce from the website and think this is irrelevant. So being able to track this in your ad manager and all of the other events that people are able to do before they can actually convert is going to give you like this beautiful funnel visualization of every campaign and every campaign level. So let's see how we can do it with the example of a single button click. So what do you have to do to get there? You can set up a Google Tag Manager. You have to set up a Google Tag Manager event tag that consists out of the Google Analytics event tag and the button click trigger. So you have to configure Google Analytics, and you have to say when it's supposed to fire. And the second step is to create a goal in Google Analytics, and the third one is to import that goal to Google Ads. Yes, there are other ways to go about this, but let's focus on this one. So first step, how to set up a new Google Tag Manager tag in your workspace. If you open your Google Tag Manager, and I put a link below where you can get a free account, you create a container, you put this container on your website, very similar to any installation on Google Analytics. And if you're interested, like this, this click up here has a very detailed installation tutorial behind it. So I don't want to go too deep into that. It is as simple as putting Google Analytics on your website. So what you want to do is create a new tag. Yeah, that is the beginning. On the top right corner, you have this new button. You click on it, and then you can see this slider that comes out, this drawer, and where you have to configure the tag and the trigger. So let's click on the tag. You just can click on anywhere here, and then you get options. Yeah, and I just pre-filled this version. Yeah, so it's not getting too complex. What did I choose? I said I want to see a Google Analytics event. I want to send that to Google Analytics. It's a tracking type as an event, not a page view. A page view is when people just land on the page, and events are the actions that people are taking on the page. So it has a category, an action, and a label. That is just the definition of an event. So the event is, the category is called Team Analytics, because I want to gather all of the events that are connected to the product Team Analytics. And the action is header, call to action, click. I try to make it as easily understandable for everybody as well as for me. And with the label, I put in the page URL that the person clicked it on in dynamically. So if I have a couple of A/B tests on different landing pages with the same call to action button, I get to see where that call to action button was clicked. And I want to send it to this specific Google Analytics ID. And then I can click down here on the trigger, and I can configure that trigger. In this case, I want to create a click trigger because it's a button click. It's actually crazy how hard this is to do if you just have Google Analytics installed. You have to put custom JavaScript into the button with an on-click event, and it is just ridiculously hard to change if you have like 10 buttons on a landing page that you want to click and that you want to configure. So here it is much easier. You can just say, I want to track either like all clickable elements or just the link clicks, and only the ones that have the text in it. And Decke dein Team. This is the German version of Discover Your Team. So just using this as a very simple example. There are good reasons not to use clicks text, but I thought this would be the more simpler example. So if the button says Discover Your Team, then this tag is going to be fired. And this trigger is not only valid for the Google Analytics event that I'm firing, but also for the Facebook Pixel event and LinkedIn and whatnot. So I can use it again and again. You're also able to use different things, for example, like a CSS class or an ID or other aspects of the element that is being clicked can be easily used as the filter for the trigger. So you don't want to fire this event every time you click anywhere on the page. You just want it when the element has certain properties. In this case, it's a text that says Discover Your Team, and then it fires. So that's the step number one. You got your tag ready. And then you should never trust your own system, because it is so easy to make just a very small mistake, a little spelling mistake here, a wrong property chosen, and the tag is not firing. So what I do is either use the preview mode of Google Tag Manager, or I use, for example, real-time tracking. If I have it conveniently, like here in Google Analytics, I put a link to that here down there. You can see that this event has fired, and on the screenshot you can actually see that landed in the wrong spot. That Team Analytics just above the circle has been fired right now as a Google Analytics event. So we have successfully triggered this tag in Google Tag Manager, and it landed in Google Analytics. Well done. So what's next? Now we take this event and we convert it into a goal. We talked about creating goals during the former Google Analytics or Analytics like a pirate meetup. If you want to check that out, it is pretty straightforward. If you go to your goals section and you edit them, you'll be asked like, hey, do you want to create a goal based on an event? And you put in the event description just the way you did in Google Tag Manager, and then voila, you suddenly have a Google Analytics conversion goal. So what's the difference between an event and a goal? In my opinion, it's like events is like general user behavior. I want to track that pretty detailed, but conversion goals are milestones along the user journey. So I definitely think this is a choice that you can make, on your own, but I only want to have a couple of key conversion goals and lots of events. And another advantage, which we need for the next step, is that those conversion goals in Google Analytics you are able to import them into your Google Ad account. So you can see here again that somebody from Google came on this page and fired this event. There were 8 people from Google CPC, that is Google Ads, and 1 person from Google Organic. So let's import this Google Analytics goal now to Google Ads. If you go to the link below that I said, that is under Tools, Conversions, you're able to import all of your Google Analytics goals to Google Ads, but you want to be very picky. Again, events a lot, Google Analytics goals a few. and a handful, and then you want to have very few Google Ads conversion events because you want to be picky what is being optimized for. It has become easier since you are now able to, when you create a campaign and you go for conversion optimization, to choose the specific conversion that you want to track for, and everything else is also being tracked, which makes it a bit easier. So, but here you can see now that the header call to action click has been confirmed as a conversion in Google Ads. Yeah, it has been fired 13 times. I put it into the category of add to cart, and you can now see that in all levels of your campaign, which is absolutely fantastic. But you have to use this data. Again, analytics is not just for fun. It is really a tool to help you to improve the performance of your campaigns, to improve your product, the usability, all that good stuff. So in this case, I showed you a zoomed in screenshot of a search campaign for the product Team Analytics. And here you can see that multiple conversion events were fired. 43 conversion events were fired in total here, if you see it here. But the most important one, the header call to action that we are currently taking care of, has been fired 9 times. So this whole campaign resulted into 9 conversion events, but there were other conversion events as well. Here we can see that the scroll depth of 75% on the landing page was reached by 27 people. 3 people downloaded the product overview, and 4 people showed intense site usage. That is a custom definition, yeah, that I created. So you can see that now, instead of getting no results because nobody scheduled the appointment, we can now see how far people actually got. Yes, they were interested and they scrolled down the page, and they even clicked the call to action, and some downloaded the product property. It just was not yet enough for them to book an appointment through this specific campaign. And this is a much clearer picture than, shit, I'm doing search campaigns and nobody's calling me. Yeah, so I think this is extremely helpful. Why else is this helpful? Because the algorithm of Google can now optimize much better for this conversion event than as if it doesn't get any data back. Yeah, it sounds stupid and obvious. But Google recommends that per week you should have at least 50 conversion events for it to be successfully able to optimize the campaign. Yeah, to pick out of 1 million people that could see your ad, just the ones that are most likely to reach that conversion goal. And 50 is a lot. You can't expect in a B2B lead generation campaign to get 50 appointments in 1 week, except you're able to spend, let's say, $100 per appointment if you're in a pretty high value B2B product category. And that is a budget that not everybody wants to start with. Yeah, so let's slow down. Let's pick one of the events like the call to actions that can realistically, in a little bit bigger campaign than the example I just showed you, can create 50 events per week. So, and that is going to help not only yourself to understand what happens in the ads much better, but it will help Google and Facebook and LinkedIn to improve the conversion probability with the audience that they have. So always consider those two sides. So just this as a little summary. First of all, the user journey becomes much more visible, and the ad platform can create better and better audience selections for you based on the past conversion. And you are now able to choose, if you got a couple of conversion events, which one is the perfect one that fires 30 to 50 times per week, but that is as deep as possible in the user journey. Yeah. So that's my little summary on that. And if this was a bit too detailed, I completely understand. feel free to just download the slides and go through this step by step slowly. You just follow along some of the tutorials I'm linking at the end of this video. Then you will easily be able to replicate this. Yeah, simple button click, and button clicks is very freeing to be able to do, to not need a developer for that. So, all right, so now we have talked about why it's awesome to track stuff without code. You can see it's not completely easy. It still takes technical sophistication, but it is much more scalable and doable through a user interface than having to code everything and then having to change that code again and again. The next thing after campaign performance is on how Google Tag Manager can actually help you to gain visibility of the user behavior, which really helps you to improve the product that you're building right now, or the landing pages and the funnel that you're creating. So that's in the next video. So I see that a lot more questions have come in. I'm super excited about those. Let's just check some out. So we can see an interesting question that has been upvoted 5 times. There are other Tag Manager solutions. Why Tag Manager? Because it's by far the most popular one. I mentioned already the Matomo Tag Manager, which seems to be really nice. Pick the one you like. It doesn't matter. I used to use Segment all the time instead of Google Tag Manager. I just feel that this product has matured so much, but let me tackle that later in this section. And there was one question that was, yeah, how many events do you recommend? I tend to use too many. It's good that you tend to use too many. You can pretty much not have too many events. It's cool. Yeah, I like that. Not having too few events. Per landing page, I would say 10 is a reasonable number, like the reasonable user interactions that people can take. If you have a product, you can easily have 100 or 200 events. It's no problem. Don't worry about it. So you can see we've got interesting questions here, and you can upload the questions if you go to slido.com, enter the code R. And I would really appreciate to make this much more meaningful and interesting for you in the upcoming sections. So let's go back. Alrighty, so gaining full visibility of your user behavior is simply key in order to build an awesome product, to build a marketing funnel that converts, because otherwise you're just flying blind. You're doing social media and ad campaigns and SEO, but you don't know what is happening afterwards. So in the video before this, in this series, we talked about how this applies to ad campaigns. Let's now take a look on what we want to track and how we can track lots of user interaction and how that can help us to become a better marketer. So at the very beginning, we took a look at our case study of Monday Rocks and took a look at the landing page. Let's just review that landing page for a moment. So we have this big landing page that is zoomed out a little bit, and we have a navigation menu where we would be interested in knowing which one of the navigation items are people most interested in clicking. So why do we care? Because navigation space is scarce, and we only want to keep navigation items in there that are being used properly. If they are not being used, why have them in there? I've seen so many overcrowded items, and so why do it? Or the language switcher, does it really need to be there in the top right corner? If it's not being used, fine. If it's being used, good, then it has been well placed. And then there is a big call to action, test the app, and a small call to action, login. So, and I always want to know what is being clicked how often. Yes, you can use Hotjar or other tools that help you to do better click tracking and heat maps to realize that. But it also helps to have them in Google Tag Manager to create conversion events based on that can inform my ad campaigns or inform my product team. And I would put Hotjar on this website through Google Tag Manager. So what else do I want to track? I want to track, of course, this button click. I want to track all of them. I want to track everybody who scrolled down like 25, 50, 70, 100%. down, and I want to see what happens after that. So as I mentioned before, I want to track the element visibility of the pricing section here, and I want to see how far people can get on there, and if they're interested in my imprint or data privacy policies and everything that happens after the primary click. So why do I want to do this? So again, usually you don't build a landing page, people suddenly show up and they all make appointments with you. Reality is that you are going to have a bottleneck, and in the beginning you don't know where the bottleneck is. Is it maybe not enough traffic? Is it the engagement on the landing page? Is it the final conversion? Is something broken? We don't know, but usually we don't build landing pages and suddenly everything works. So this behavior tracking has the biggest benefit on me if it recognizes bottlenecks, shows it to me, which makes the data very actionable, and I can then focus the effort of my user experience team or maybe my own conversion rate optimization efforts on this bottleneck. This has become by far the most important technique for me. I always visualize the user flow like a system, and there are places where the pipe gets really thin and I have to start to widen it there. And analytics help me to see that people are struggling in this area. And it also gives me ideas for improvements. Let's say I see that people are clicking on the appointments, but they are not creating the appointments. Maybe the date picker and the available time slots are just not convenient for the people in the audience, or it's too complicated. I just get idea when I look at the data that I get through Google Analytics to all of the other tracking tools I like to use. So to me, like, events are so much more important than page views. Page views simply tell you, oh, somebody landed on my landing page, but not what they actually did. And you can see in this example that on this landing page, it's also from Monday Rocks, you can see how many people in the time frame I've picked have scrolled down, how far they have scrolled down. You can see that only 50% get to the 25-point mark, but only 24% get to the middle of the landing page. So if I know that, maybe I can shorten the landing page. I can focus my testing efforts on fewer folds. Maybe I draw other conclusions, and I can see how many people click on the header, and this helps me so much to then go back to the landing page and consider like, what to do, what not. And Google Tag Manager just provides us a shit ton of trigger types that already make you think of, oh yeah, I want to create this type of event, this type of event, and this type. And I want to show you those trigger types in Google Tag Manager, because they will show you again the power of such a tool that you can replace with many others. But here, I think the integrations that just come with Google Tag Manager are one of the strongest arguments for it. A native integration with the complete Google world, their new templates for tags and triggers, it's very well established. So you see at the top, so this is where you land up when you want to create a new trigger in Google Tag Manager. We talked about that in the video before. So let's say we want to create a trigger for just our generic Facebook pixel, Google pixel for the page view. Then we just pick the already prepared auto event trigger page view. It's a convenience feature that when a person went to your website and the whole page is loaded, and as you can see, there are different definitions and phases of a page view that you can target, that you can use. But usually the page view on a normal, not single page application, this is the right thing to do. You can just use it and then put in your basic pixels like the Google and Facebook pixel, and it will fire the page view. What is more interesting are events like clicks and clicks on elements and link clicks. So all of those things are pretty much, they're being understood as listeners. They are listening for events that users are doing on your website. So an illusion that many people are having is that only stuff is being tracked that we made explicit. But how is the browser showing me the cursor and the exact position of the cursor if not everything is being tracked? Every single pixel that is being shown is being tracked, and you get to that understanding when you start using, for example, the all elements click thing. Then you see how that everything is already clicked. So this listener tracked, this event listener is just making it more visible and accessible to us as marketers and product people. So if you go for all elements, then every single element on your page, the background, any image, every button, everything can now be clicked, and you can track those clicks. But you usually want to do a filter, like only button clicks or only images or only videos. And you can do that here, but it is done for you. Doing that custom is hard work. So then you can see the user engagement category, element visibility. If an element, for example, with a certain CSS class, like a pricing section is visible, you want to say, yeah, oh yeah, that is an interesting event, that is a user achievement on their journey, or the visibility of a form field or a contact form or something like that. That I really like to track with element visibility. Form submission is a godsend. Measuring form submissions properly just with Google Tag Manager is really hard. Measuring form submissions just with Google Analytics installed without Google Tag Manager is usually pretty hard because there is no way without custom JavaScript to send the checked form submission event if the person stays on the same page. This is why I recommend that when somebody submits a form, I usually send them to a thank you page, which makes the whole tracking affair a lot easier. But with Google Tag Manager, you get built-in auto event triggers like the form submission. And there is some sophistication to form submissions, yeah, because you have to be careful if the form is not completely finished, will it still fire or not? But this is more like for the intermediate level. Then scroll depth, done for you. How far did people scroll? And you decide on the level of detail. If you want to do 10% step, 1% steps, or 25% steps, as I like to do, it's all up to you. Then, of course, YouTube videos. Google Tag Manager and YouTube, they are from the same company. And you'll be able to see how many people started, how long they watched the video, when they stopped, when they completed. And this might be interesting if you are showing a video on your website that is being handled by YouTube. And then the crazy area is all of the custom events. Yeah, if you can fire anything into Google Tag Manager that a user does or that happens in the backend. You don't even need user interaction. You can use events that are being fired through the backend without the user engagement, or you can set timers, wait for 15 seconds, and then fire this pixel. This is helpful, for example, when you want to create lookalike audiences on Facebook, but you don't want to include the people who bounced off the website right away. You only want to include the people who, for example, have at least 2 page views or remain 15 seconds on your website, and you want to create a lookalike on this a little bit more exclusive page view group. And this is what I really like. Or you can trigger stuff like a chat window a little bit later through Google Tag Manager. I really like it. The history change is incredibly helpful if you have a single page application and you don't have different URLs, or you have a form that is a multi-step form, but it all stays on the same page view. Then history change is usually what helps me to still get to see all of the different changes in the pages. But let's not get too deep into that. If you're already familiar with that, you know what you're doing. But it is very interesting to know that you're able to do it. And one of the newest features is trigger groups that helps you to combine certain triggers. So let's say a person clicked a call to action and stayed on the page for 15 seconds and has seen the pricing page. Now they get to see a pop-up from your customer support chat And otherwise they won't see it, they won't be annoyed by it. So you can really group those triggers together and create rules that way. As to me, that is absolutely fantastic. So what are my standard events that I pretty much always like to set up? All the important clicks, form submits 100%, scroll events 25, 50, 75, 100, element visibility for key elements, and timers 15 seconds, 60 seconds, 3 minutes, something like that. Yeah. And those are just for you like a checklist. Did I implement the basics? I think the top 3 ones, they are the most important ones for me. Cool. So if you liked it so far, please leave a sub and a like and maybe a comment on the YouTube channel. That would be awesome. We are working on the first 500 subscribers. So please be helpful for that. Thank you very much if you have done this already. So now this concludes the main parts, like why you should do it, how to use it for ad campaigns, how to use it for user behavior. But the journey with Google Tag Manager is at the very beginning. Yeah, it is incredible how deep you can go there. And I want to show you in the next video the different learning levels and where you should maybe stop, because you won't get much more out of the deeper stuff. So you save a lot of time, I hope. So see you in that next video. So let's dive into it. I see that we now got 11 questions here. Thank you for submitting so many questions. You can see them already up here. Oh yeah. Oh, interesting. Oh, I'm looking forward to the Q&A. So if you have more questions, please submit them here at slido.com #R. And I'm looking very much forward to answering most of these. I think we're going to have the time. Cool. Thank you, guys. All right, next part. So you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager. Maybe you have started your journey, you have tried it once, it was a bit complicated, or you're already intermediate and want to reach expert status. So how would I go about it? I would say that there are like 4 basic levels. At the beginning, you should just focus on being able to properly install Google Tag Manager, how to configure and create tags, and how to set up the basic triggers, page view, clicks, scroll events, timers, stuff like that. Yeah, that are not so difficult to configure. Get that in line first before you focus on the more complex stuff. Then the second level would be is to start to be able to be more picky about the event listeners. For example, if you go for link clicks and you want to track them, to be more subtle in the choice for the filter. Let's say you have 5 call to action buttons on your website. They all lead to the same other part of the website. You can create a tag and a trigger for each and every single one. That is a lot of work. Or you become a bit more subtle and you create one trigger that captures all 5 of those button clicks in one move. So, and the next topic I would consider after that is thinking about variables, storing information in variables that you can use somewhere else. Let's say a user made a choice. I recently had to do a choice on an e-commerce page. Are you B2C or B2B customer because of VAT to be included or not? It was very, very awesome idea to ask me that and to use that as a segmentation later for the retargeting. It's a great idea for all B2B e-commerce situations. And you want to store these kinds of informations in variables and use this information at some later point. For example, you want to store the consent and what people consented to in the data privacy settings and whatnot. And what I would then tackle is form submissions. Form submissions are not super difficult, but I would say it's not super beginner friendly to do form validation before you actually send the event to your tracking tools. After that, the fun starts. So the data layer is an additional layer of data that you can access, that you can push data into. For example, everything that somebody put into the checkout, anonymized user IDs, cookie consent status, and you can use it in different tools at different points in times when people come back. It's a wonderful place that allows a lot of complexity. And then you can tackle a topic like e-commerce tracking. For the love of God, if you use Shopify or something similar, try to use the built-in solutions to rebuild a complete e-commerce tracking setup with add to carts and product names and prices and all that stuff in Google Tag Manager is a lot of work. But of course, if you are an advanced shop and you see the advantages, go for it. And if you have a single page application, yeah, there are a lot of more has to be done by hand. But if you have a single page applications, you know how to code, or you have a developer on your team who's building it, there you will need help configuring most of the events, yeah, that you are firing. So there are some subtleties to that as well. And then the learning doesn't stop, and I could definitely have more levels than the 4. But everything that I would say that is based on custom events that you configure by hard coding them into your backend and front end, and any custom JavaScript, that would be after that. So if you want to learn this, try to stay pretty much in this order, and you will feel confident in your abilities. Even level 1 gives you 80% of the convenience features that a daily marketer needs, yeah, for Google Tag Manager. But how do you get there? Where do you learn this stuff? The first resource I really can heartily recommend, not only for Google Tag Manager, but also for Google Analytics, for Google Data Studio, is the Google Academy. Man, this is a free interactive video course series that other people would charge you $1,000 for. I think it goes beyond the fundamentals, and of course there is much more documentation around it, but this is a great free place to start that is pretty structured. You want to go beyond that, or if you don't like, if you just want to see stuff that, how do I do the form tracking? How do I track the button click? You want to go to Julian's YouTube channel called Measure School. Julian is a German guy who actually does this in English. And I think in the first year of dealing with Google Tag Manager, I learned 80% from him, yeah, from Measure School, and just from the YouTube channel. And you can really go deep there. And he's keeping up content and creating new and interesting stuff in the world of the data-driven way of marketing. So I can highly recommend that. This link is functional, so if you downloaded the slides, you can just click here and you'll land on that channel. And he also has a paid product. I'm not affiliated by that. I can just recommend it. I've used it a lot to just go into the nitty-gritty and deeper parts of Google Tag Manager. He has this website called Measure School, and it has like multiple very nice topical courses about Google Tag Manager. Yeah, just go there and check it out. It's highly recommended from my end. And of course, there's the developer documentation of Google Tag Manager, which explains everything, the complete API access, or if you want to do crazy stuff like server-side tracking with Google Tag Manager, which is now available. If you want to do zones and Tag Manager 360, everything is explained in the developer documentation for that. And if I have really difficult questions, like this is the place where I get an answer. Is this even possible or not? Yeah, so I like those resources. And of course, you can use our YouTube channel, the Pirate Skills channel. We will keep on producing content like this, introducing you to new tools, to new techniques and mindsets in growth marketing, like today. And there are past events about Google Analytics, about Facebook pixel tracking, and all that kind of stuff that I hope is worth for you to subscribe and to like and to leave a comment. Yeah, that would be awesome. And I think those are the resources I would go to in the beginning and until you're super advanced. So that's it. We handled how to manage tags without code, how to use it for your ads, how to create more user behavior visibility, and how to stay on this learning path in Google Tag Manager, which leaves us now time for the Google Tag Manager Q&A in the next video. So we got a lot of questions. Welcome to the Google Tag Manager Q&A session. And we usually start this with our feedback. So head over to slido.com, enter the code R, and I will just start the poll, which asks you, like, how did you like this video series so far? Would you recommend it to a friend or colleague? Just on a scale from 10, 0 being, gosh, this was awful, 10, this is awesome, I would definitely recommend it. We already got one vote in, so just use the time now to get in there. And this is also the place where you can ask and upvote the questions. Yeah, so feel free to be super honest and diss me live on the live stream. I can take it. So yeah, we got 2 votes up, and just keep them coming so I can see that people are actually here in Slido and still active and engaging with me. So slido.com, enter the code R, and you are there. Yeah. I'll start going into the questions now. You can always stay here on the poll and then switch over to the Q&A section. All right, and the first question is, there are other tag manager solutions. Why Google Tag Manager? Very good question. Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics have become, for me, the de facto standard. Even in big organizations, somehow Google and Microsoft always manage to get their feet in there, and it is allowed to use those tools in there. And for startups, it is an incredibly flexible solution. It's 99% free. You need a lot of events and for it to need Tag Manager 360. But if you have that problem, congratulations. As I said, I like the Matomo Tag Manager. I like Segment. I used Tag Commander in the past. Wasn't super happy about that one. If you have Tag Manager solutions that you would like to share, please leave them in the Discord or in the comments below wherever you're watching this. Yeah, so that is the main reason why I'm using that. So, what is easier or better, Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics? Thank you for that question. So it's not an either or question. If you want to use Google Analytics, you can install it straight on your website, or you can install it through Google Tag Manager. Yeah, so Google Tag Manager is a layer between your website and a tool like Google Analytics. So it's not a question of whether or not. I highly prefer Google Analytics through Google Tag Manager. Yeah, because you're much more flexible and you can do so much without coding. So it's definitely my preference. There are times and reasons when just implementing Google Analytics is the better solution because it's simpler. It's just a temporary landing page. You don't want to do much on it and kill it tomorrow. Then I wouldn't waste my time on Google Tag Manager. All right. Okay, how complex can I get with the rule-based tag firing? I don't think there is a limit to the complexity. You can go down to the CSS and ID level to select elements. You can do and or, but there is a limitation here. You have to decide on and or. You cannot say like, oh yeah, I want this group of ands and or I want this group of other ands. You have to decide like, I want all of those filters followed or I want any of those filters followed. That is the limitation, which can be mitigated by trigger groups. You can, and that is another question that I saw coming up, you can combine different triggers into a trigger group and then again say and or Is that tag supposed to fire when all of those criteria are fulfilled or just some? And I think that gives you enough complexity. If you include the abilities that you have on the data layer, I don't think there's a reasonable limit to what you can do. Cool. So next question. How do events affect performance of a website? I think Google Tag Manager actually has an advantage what page speed is concerned over putting the pixels straight onto your website. Google Tag Manager is very mindful of asynchronous loading. That means it prioritizes, your website prioritizes the content first and then all of the tracking stuff. And you are in charge, or you're able to decide in which sequence tags are being fired. So you can, for example, fire the tracking tags before the chat widgets. So the chat widget is not hanging up your tracking time, because it usually takes some time to load. So in general, of course, Pixel can slow down your website, but as long as the page content is prioritized and loaded first, I think you're making a good deal here. Yeah, and it's not only about total amount of kilobytes on your page, or what a tool like Google Page Insights is going to tell you how long it takes to load the complete page. It is about when is it interactable and engaging for the user. When can you see the first ink being drawn on the page, and when can they start clicking? As long as this is prioritized and happens really fast, below 2 seconds, you're good to go, and you can add as many pixels as you like, in my opinion. Okay, next question. Can you do meaningful exports from Google Tag Manager to your Google Data Warehouse? Yes, you can. There are some restrictions or some reservations that are for the Analytics 360, for the Google Tag Manager 360. There are definitely integrations with BigQuery and with other data storage solutions. What I see more frequently, though, is that, for example, you export from Google Tag Manager into a data warehouse, from Google or a Facebook or a segment to a data warehouse. I see it rarely that data is pushed from a data warehouse, from Google Tag Manager directly to a data warehouse. I just see it very, very rarely, but it is definitely doable. And consider that you can do anything you want with JavaScript on this end. The question is that the right place? Do you have enough data context to make it worth being exported? I think I prefer first sending it to a proper analytics tool and then taking it from there to a data warehouse. But I guess there are situations where this is highly interesting. What I see actually more frequent is the other way around, that data is being pushed to Google Tag Manager from a place, not necessarily data warehouse, but a Google Form or other analytics tools or a CRM. Because then this information is now being used to personalize data for the user on the website. Much more interesting that way for me. All right, so we get 12 more questions. Awesome. It is 20:07. We're gonna keep answering questions, I think, until 1:15. So Detlef is asking, I know which one you are. Thank you for joining us again. Would you recommend to put a trigger on the end result or each individual step? How do you avoid to double count the same event? So, okay, let's say you have a funnel that consists of 10 steps. The first one is a person lands on the website, and the last one is person made a successful appointment with you. But in between there are steps. I would highly recommend tracking the individual steps, at least in a reasonable amount, let's say 10 steps, because the user behavior becomes much more clear. And you usually, as I said before, you don't up in the situation to start the campaign and suddenly, bam, everybody reaches the end of the funnel. Yeah, so you want to know where they are dropping off. And how do you avoid double counting the same event? I don't worry about it on the event level that much. If you import it as a goal in Google Analytics, it's just being counted once per session. So that is already a limitation. But you can usually look at the total number of events being fired versus unique events. And this is Google's or Facebook's, at least try to limit one event to one person and just to count it as one. A unique event is just one user firing it 13 times. Yeah. All right, thank you for that question. The next question. When is it better to install pixels via Google Tag Manager, and when is it better to just hard code them? If you want to go quick and dirty, it's the hard coding. And if you are in this for a long run, if you're doing this in a more complex setup, then Google Tag Manager is a godsend, and I would pretty much always prefer that. Then, due to GDPR, you have to have the ability to connect the Google Tag Manager with the consent form of what your visitor is deciding in the cookie banner. Do they want to be tracked? And if yes, all pixels or just a few, just a selection, or not at all. That can make it a bit harder. And what I have done for that, for example, on WordPress, I keep the base pixels in my cookie consent solution. Yeah, my consent solution of choice is Bohr Labs cookies. And I fire the base tags there, but the event tracking, I keep that in Google Tag Manager and only fires when consent is given. All right, next question. Can I track iframes with Google Tag Manager? If you have control of the content of the iframe, so if you own the page and are able to put analytics on there as well, yes, 100%, you can track it. If it's from an external source, like a tool, like a webinar tool, and you cannot put additional tracking code on the content in the iframe, you can sadly not track events that are happening in the iframe. Okay, is Google Tag Manager for free? Yes, for the most users it's free. There is a paid solution within the Google 360 suite. If you have questions about that, agencies can help you with that. It's a big commitment. It's usually like a 5-figure per year plus commitment. But ask them. But until you have hundreds of thousands of users, usually for free. Okay, the next question. Can I combine triggers? Yes, you can combine triggers to so-called trigger groups. You create a new trigger. If you scroll down to the bottom, then you can see the trigger groups. Maybe I can show you really quickly. This is my Google Tag Manager. And if you create a new trigger here, and you create a new one, and you can scroll down and you can see that you have trigger groups. And here you can combine triggers and say, yeah, only when they did this and that, some conditions or all. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So let's go back. Yes, you can. All right, is Matomo Tag Manager as powerful as Google Tag Manager? I think the question is not as powerful. The thing is, what do you do when your company doesn't allow Google Tag Manager? Then you go to Matomo Tag Manager because you can host it for yourself and people suddenly think it's a lot safer. And that's fine with me. Let them do what they want. It is as powerful. I've seen also functions, for example, like video view time that is not limited to YouTube, that is already completely integrated. Stuff that wasn't available on Google Tag Manager. So on principle, I would say it is as powerful as Google Tag Manager, especially if you're like on level 1 and 2, you just want to do basic form submits, click tracking, that kind of stuff. I do not know if it's as strong in terms of like the data layer functions and the integrations with other tool providers. Yeah, you have to check that out. All right. So how can I track single page applications with Google Tag Manager? So what's the problem of single page applications? You land on a landing page, you do a lot of stuff, you end up on different screens, but you are still on the same URL. The URL never changes. And so Google Analytics or other tools do not recognize that a user has made a change, yeah, and went to different pages, which makes it hard to visualize the funnel and to see where people are dropping off. So you cannot use the normal page view trigger. What you usually can use if you're, let's say you have a single page application built on Angular or React, and you used a router, which is very common to manage your URLs, then this is still a browser history change. And instead of page view, you can use the history change. Let me show you. Feature, let's discard those changes. So we have a trigger here. Yep, we want to add a new one. And this trigger is not a page view in a single page application. That only works for the very first load of the page. You need that as well, I guess. But here, down here, the history change. And that is pretty well handled if you use a router in your single page applications. If you don't use a router, use one, but you can also create custom events that you can fire and then use them as a trigger. So if you have a single page application, you know what you're doing in code, and you can fire anything to Google Tag Manager that you like. Alrighty, so 5 more questions. We're almost out of time, but come on, let's keep answering a couple. So how many events do you recommend? How many events do you recommend? I use too many. I said already, I love too many events. I recommend few, like 10 conversion goals, but have 100 events. It's all good. Keep them. Next question. Can you use trigger groups on a CMS as like WordPress or shop systems as Spotify to use that for pop-up events like vouchers and newsletters? Yes, you can. That's a good question, Stefan. So what he wants to do is to only show a certain voucher or a newsletter pop-up when people fulfill multiple criteria. For example, they have been on the page for a certain amount of time. That is the first trigger, the time trigger here that I showed you. This one, the timer. Yeah, only when people were there for how many milliseconds. Yeah? So, and then you want to be picky and say, but only when they have seen that website, or what I also like is when they come from a certain source. Yeah, so when they come from a certain influencer. And that is very interesting, I think. Let's say you want to send a specific voucher to a person to want to announce it when they come from an influencer from a swipe up Instagram story promotion. You can actually see exactly where they came from, and then you can put that voucher, then you can customize it to that specific influencer. I usually do this through UTM parameters. I on the swipe up, I put in UTM parameters. You can Google that if you're interested. And then I just put in the campaign parameter, like the name of the influencers. And that is one of the filter criteria for the pop-up that is going to be triggered. So I like that idea. I very much like your question. Thank you very much. So 3 more questions. Can you use Google Tag Manager on an external page to your domain in order form via jot forms that is being tracked in Google Analytics? Yes, you can. The only thing that you have to be able to do is to add custom JavaScript to the jot form. Lots of tools do not allow it. Let's say Eventbrite. I'll use a lot of Eventbrite, and Eventbrite does not allow me to put in Google Tag Manager because it's too powerful. I could do too much with it and mess with the system. But lots of tools are allowing you to put any JavaScript you like additionally into the header, on, for example, on the jot form, and then you're able to put in Google Tag Manager. And I would highly recommend doing that. All right. You think as non-techies we can use it? I think Google Tag Manager has been made for non-techies. It is not very easy to use, yeah, but it is much less complex than custom coding all of that stuff. So yes, you need some technical affinity, but you don't have to know how to code. That is the beautiful thing about Google Tag Manager. So a very resounding yes. All right. Last question. Did I understand it right? I've installed Google Analytics on my website like Shopify. Now I feed more detail events from Google Tag Manager. Yes, you have installed the base pixel on your website like Shopify. And now you have, for example, web pages with forms on there that you want people to submit, or you want to track stuff that is outside of the e-commerce area. The e-commerce tracking is handled so beautifully by Shopify that I wouldn't mess with it. The only thing that I don't like is how they handle GDPR stuff. But you want to handle like form submissions and other special stuff, just the events. And now you can feed it through Google Tag Manager. You understand it perfectly. And I hope I translated your questions properly. All right, those are all the questions. Thank you, everybody. Let's just check out the final poll results. Thank you for 12 people who have submitted the feedback. It's a 9.3 score. Thank you very much for everybody who provided me that feedback. And if you have suggestions on what we could improve here and what you would like to see in terms of topics and so forth, please just send me a message on Discord or just at ben@pirateskills.com. I would really love to hear from you. All right, let's switch back. We answered all of the questions. I think there were a ton. And I really would love to invite you, if you like this, to join us at the next meetup. We're going to keep on building on this B2B track that we are on. Now we keep on taking the Monday Rocks case study, and we're going to look on how to get started with LinkedIn ads. Lots of you have asked me. I always declined because I didn't have enough experience, but now I tested a lot in different projects in my own business with LinkedIn ads. I'm super happy with the results, especially since Facebook ads are keeping on getting worse. And for the B2B crowd, LinkedIn just has superior features in terms of targeting. So if you're up for that, go to getpirateskills.com/LinkedIn-ads, get a free ticket, and let's get pumped about this. And if you have suggestions about this topic, then please put them in there. And if you're still here on YouTube, please take the time to subscribe and like. That would be fucking awesome. And hang out with us on Discord. Right after this, I'm going to switch on Discord and I'm going to the voice channel here that says like live stream voice channel. And there we can just talk, yeah, for a little bit after the meetup. And you maybe have a question and just want to hang out. I'm there for a couple of minutes. Hope to see you there on the other side. Otherwise, that was a beautiful meetup. Thank you very much and see you on the next one. Bye-bye.